Shalom, Mishpaka. So hold on one second. Let me turn this air on because it is hot. Make sure this radio's not on either. All right. I apologize if that's loud. Let me turn it down just a little bit. It's just hot outside, and I'm sitting in this car, and praise Yah that He has fixed my AC, so I'm going to utilize it while I'm in this car. And I sit in my car because it's just easier to not be interrupted when I'm, recording these. Anyway, so my disclaimer is I do not pay attention to half of the stuff that's talked about in social media or in the media, so on and so forth. But it doesn't mean I don't hear things. And so I have to give that disclaimer so you understand that when I mention a few things, I don't really know a whole lot about them, nor do I care to know anything about them, because I feel like as a daughter of Yahuah, it doesn't pertain to me. But that's exactly what I want to talk about today, because so I have a cleaning client that I cleaned their establishment on today. Today is Yom Ahad, the first day, okay? And I was there, I had my, earphone in, because, sometimes I listen to podcasts, sometimes I listen to YouTube videos because I can't really watch them. And sometimes I just listen to set-apart music, but this particular day, and I don't know why, because I'm actually moving towards getting rid of every single piece of social media that I have, but I had TikTok on. And I do follow a lot of set-apart people on TikTok. However, that doesn't mean that's what's going to pop up in your feed all the time. So I've noticed that lately I keep having people talking about Project 2025 and Project Esther popping up. Now here's the reason why I gave my disclaimer. I have very limited knowledge on either one of those things, and Project 2030 as well. I have very limited knowledge on any of these things, and that's because I don't care about them. The knowledge, the information that I do have on them is just things I've heard people saying, and I don't care to look them up because, again, that's Babylon. But with that being said, it was a young woman she was talking about some of the things that Project Esther is supposed to entail. Things like women losing their rights, and this is all women of every of every skin color, losing their rights, being property of their husband. If you're a woman that likes women, you will be used as a breeder, pretty much. Even if you don't want to marry a man, you'll still be used as a breeder if you have a working womb, stuff like that, right? So the reason why I'm here talking to you is because as I'm listening to this, again, in my head, I'm like, well, this is trash. And Yahuah was saying to me, if you are his child and you are obeying his voice, and you know what I'm saying, like you're following after Yahusha, don't be afraid of any of the stuff that you're hearing about these things that's going on. The threat of martial law. And I will tell you, in 2020, as everything had started to shut down, I was a receptionist in a local government facility where I lived. And everybody else obviously got to work from home. I couldn't work from home because they didn't have a virtual receptionist. They just had the on-site receptionist, which was me. So when everything shut down, I was without a job. But as everything was shutting down, so one of the things that I was in charge of as the receptionist, because the location that I was at was not open to the public per se, but every once in a while they would have interest meetings and so on and so forth. And so that was something that the public could come to, and I was in charge of booking the rooms for that. Well, one of my tasks was to book the rooms for that and make sure the room got set up by our maintenance people and so on and so forth. However, as the world was shutting down, the public was no longer allowed in there. If you didn't have a badge, you couldn't get into the place. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody without a badge was allowed inside anymore. So with that being said, my job was now limited to answering calls, sorting the mail, and making sure the boss The boss that I had that was directly over me, I took care of whatever tasks that she needed me to take care of. So I'm sitting at my computer and I hear Ruach HaKodesh. Now mind you, I am like in the process of waking up during this time, so I'm not even fully awake yet. I'm still considering myself a Christian. I'm still calling on the other names, but I have been abstaining from the worldly holidays for years. I had started observing the Shabbat for the past few years. Yahuah had been moving me into that place, and now he had started to reveal to me him and Yahusha's names, right? And mind you, I also was I wasn't using the traditional Christian names. I was saying Yahweh and Yeshua. But yeah, he was starting to reveal that to me. But anyway, off subject. So I'm sitting there and there's a list that, he said, write down everything that you hear me say. So I will say that there's things that have come to pass that are on that list. And I'm like, wow, as everything is unfolding, I'm sitting there going, wow, that lets me know that I really did hear from him. But I said all that to say, I still don't get invested too much into these things. If I hear it, I hear it. I mean, that's one thing, but I'm not going to go research what these bills and agendas and projects and all this other stuff is, because again, it doesn't pertain to me. So as I'm listening to this woman hash out everything that Project Esther is supposed to be about, I hear Yahuah say to me, remember what it is that you are currently learning in the book of Shemath, Exodus. Let me turn this thing down. It's starting to get a little cool now. This thing works. Hallelujah. But he was telling me, remember everything that I've been teaching you in the book of Shemath. So I'm in 7 books right now. Shemath, Exodus is one of those books. And I'm slow rolling through all these books now. So Yahuah has slowed me down, and now I'm taking my time through each chapter, right? And thus far, I've gotten to the chapter, what am I in? I'm in chapter 13 now. And so I've gone through the plagues and all the other stuff. I've even gone through the first Pesach, right? And what Yahuah was saying to me is, he said all these things that they're doing is the spiritual equivalent of Pharaoh not letting his people go. Because one of the things that they're also trying to do is make it to where people can't get passports, and even some people might be losing their passports. Again, all stuff that I don't really know a whole bunch about. So if you ask me, I can't tell you. I'm not even going to tell you to look it up, because I really don't feel like you should it doesn't pertain to you if you're obeying Yahuah. But I mean, that's between you and Yahuah. But anyway, so he said that's the spiritual equivalent of Pharaoh not letting his people go. The other thing that he said to me was, he said, all these plagues and all these things that you've been seeing, he said that was stuff that I permitted man to do. However, now that Pharaoh refuses to let his people go, his plagues. Now, when he said this, he specifically said to me the things that we read about in the book of Revelation. His plagues are about to start taking place. Not these things that, not these pestilences that man has been permitted to create and unleash on the population and so on and so forth. Yeah, his plagues are about to start going forth. And he said, you're going to know the difference. You're going to know the difference when it's him versus man that's doing it, right? And then he said to me, he said, remember how I separated Yasharal from the Egyptians. So that's, it took me 9 minutes to get there, but that's the message that he wanted me to say, is that remember that separation. Whenever the hail came down and beat up all the animals that were in the field and destroyed the crops, remember that was only the Egyptians. The Israelites, their animals, their flocks, and their crops and produce and stuff wasn't harmed. When that darkness that was so thick that nobody moved out of their spot for 3 days because it was a darkness that could be felt, that's exactly how it's described in Shemath. When that darkness came, the children of Israel, they were in the land of Goshen, and they had light. Now you and I, hopefully you know, Yahuah has revealed it to me, but hopefully you know as well that that light is Yahusha. In the same way, we won't have to have the sun or anything to give us light in the renewed Jerusalem. That is the same way Yahusha will light us. And I'm going to tell you guys a testimony, because this is also tied into this. So back in, was it last year during April when they had the, eclipse? It was like that rare eclipse that was supposed to last for like, 4 minutes or some junk like that. And so my dad and I were waiting for it, because I was like, well, I want to see this, you know what I'm saying? Because it's been a minute since I've seen a solar eclipse. When I was younger and I lived in California, it seemed like I saw them all the time. But we were waiting on it. Well, we sat here, and then I started seeing on my social media page, and even the assembly that I used to be a part of, the people on there started texting the group text message about how the eclipse looked. People were texting pictures, and me and my dad looked at each other, because it stayed light outside here. Like, it never got dark. And like the pictures that people were putting up, it was dark, like it was nighttime outside. As a matter of fact, on my social media page, there was this one woman. She used to be a manager of mine. She lives in a city that's 30 minutes south of where I am currently. 30 minutes. She put up pictures. It was dark as night where she is, right? 30 minutes south. It never got dark here. We didn't even know that the eclipse had happened, because it was just as bright as always here. So we were like, okay, all right. And mind you, the only reason why I know that it really happened is because people were putting pictures and videos up of where they were and when it happened. And even then, Yahuah brought me back to, I want to say it's Shemath chapter 10, Exodus chapter 10, that talks about this darkness. Now, I can't remember the verse, but I want to say it's chapter 10 where it talks about the darkness. And if it's not chapter 10, then it's chapter 12. But I want to say it's chapter 10. But with that being said, yeah, like, even back then, Yahuah said to me, Yahusha is your light. My children will always have light. So, yeah, all this stuff that you hear people fear-mongering, channeling through these mediums, because that's what media is, mediums. All these things that you hear people preparing for and scrambling around for and being scared for. There's even Christians right now that are saying that the 23rd or the 25th of this month, this current month, September 2025, yeah, I had to get Babylonian with it. They're saying the rapture is coming out. We know the rapture is a false doctrine, but that's how scared folks are right now. But yeah, Yahuah was saying to me, he was like, that's not for my people. I'm protecting my people. My children are safe. So all the more reason to listen and obey to Shama Yasharal. Shama Yasharal. All the more reason. Because he said he's going to keep us safe during the time of all this turmoil. And like I said, he said that his plagues is about to happen now. Mind you, you notice I didn't tell you when. You know why I didn't tell you when? Because Yahuah didn't tell me when. It ain't none of my business. Because as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to, it doesn't matter when it happens. Right? Watch and pray. He was also revealing something to me about atonement. But I'm going to make a separate video for that, because these two things need to be focused. Like, each thing needs to be focused on individually. And Yahuah, at first I was going to make just one video. And Yahuah said, no, you need to emphasize this. And then you need to emphasize that. So I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to do what he said. So you might get it later on today. You might get it in a few days. But just some pretty interesting things that he was revealing to me about atonement, the Day of Atonement, specifically Yom Kippur. Anyway, so yeah, don't be afraid. As much as you can, just watch and pray. So I'm not telling you to tune these things out, because I mean, these things going on are all signs. They're all different things that's pointing, Yahusha in Matthew 24, he pretty much gave us the rundown. I'm saying us because although he was talking to his Lamud Ayam back then, if you're his student right now, you're his Lamud right now. So he was pretty much giving us the rundown of all the things that would take place before he came back. So, it's hearing about it. It's not nothing wrong about hearing about it. Just don't go researching it and ascribing to it and becoming afraid because of it. Because again, that's for Babylon. It's for Babylon. Yahuah is going to move his people how and when he decides to. And we have to remember that he is the creator. So there is no fallen angel or vessel of a fallen angel that can hinder when Yahuah moves. You feel me? Even when it came to Pharaoh in the book of Shemath, when in the Israelites and Moshe and Aaron, even when it came to that, Yahuah told Moshe, I have hardened Pharaoh's heart. If Yahuah hadn't did that, ain't no telling. Pharaoh might have let him go a while ago. Might have let the people go a while ago, but he did it for a reason. Okay? But Yahuah was the reason why he wasn't letting them go. You feel me? So please don't think there's anything that these folks can do that's going to hinder Yahuah from being Yahuah at all. Period. Point blank. All right. Much ahaba and shalom.